Welcome, everybody. Great to see you. I am Helena Brown, and I am a member of the board of MCAN. And I, like you, we welcome you, especially those who signed up recently at the No Kings demonstration in Boston. There were many, many people, well over 100, close to 200 people who signed up. And it's late already in the year, and MCAN is offering a new direction, addressing the old question: what can we do about it? Before we move on, please rename yourself. There are these 3 dots on the corner of your image, or put it in your chat. The preferred pronouns and the town, city from which you are. And I will have to do exactly the same thing when we finish. The Massachusetts Climate Action Network seeks to accelerate equitable decarbonization in Massachusetts by empowering local residents, advocates, and community members to take action. So the emphasis is on empowering the local. MCAN provides a network and expertise to help the local groups to take action on climate. And it's a network. It's not a vertical organization. It's a network of organizations. Right now, we have more than 60 chapters around the state and thousands of amazing advocates all around the state. I'm not going to list all these items, but this is basically 1 year worth of activities from September 24 to now to October, culminating in a No Kings Day in October. Over 7 million people nationwide actually participated. Amazing. So after the main program, at 1 o'clock, some of you may have to leave, but we welcome everybody to stay, and it will be an open network, sharing ideas, experiences, interacting with each other. That's what we are about. We are recording this session, you should know that, and if you have questions, hold until after the initial presentation. Hold chats so they are not distracting until after the initial presentations. Raise digital hands under this place reactions to be recognized. Mute, please, when you are not speaking. Keep comments brief, 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 brief. We may not be able to address all the questions, comments during this session, but we'll find a way to address them later. Okay, again, for those who joined since I started, please rename yourself. There are these 3 dots in the upper right corner of your image. Put in preferred pronouns and the city, town from which where you are. And now I am welcoming Fred Davis, President of MCAN, to take the floor. He's our great leader, and we all love
Lulu.
with him. Here you go, Fred, talking about training.
Thank you so much, Helena. Okay, can folks see my screen? Can people speak up and just let me know if you can see the full screen, please?
We can see it.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Terrific. All right. So you may have noticed in our communications, we use the word stealthy, and people have asked, what are you talking about? And guess what? An answer was provided, not by me, but by Renee Graham in her column this week about the No Kings. She says at the bottom there, what happens in the streets can translate into work that's not easily seen, but can be effective. I'm not going to talk about that more now, but if anybody wants to talk about it at the end of the presentation, terrific. I look forward to a discussion. In June, I asked, what are we doing the next 5 years? What's going to be new and different? And today, we're presenting just that. I think what I'm saying today, it will look surprisingly simple, but it is super effective, this approach to combating climate change. And it's new and different. You may not realize how new and different, but we're going to get into that. So I encourage, please grab an old-fashioned pen and paper. You may want to take note of one or more of the 9 steps when we get into them. And also, if you look at the bottom right corner of the screen, hopefully you can see a slide number. And if you make note of a slide number, it might help you. You can request when we're done for me to come back to that slide to see if you whatever it is you missed or have a question on. So this will be a training. We don't usually do training mode at the MCAN Zooms. This will be a training in community organizing. This training has been shown to work, this program that we'll be training you in has been shown to work equally in all types of communities, houses of worship and municipalities, anything that you can call a community. And in each case, what's ideal is a community green team. And I wonder, I know we asked folks to hold off on reactions till the end. I appreciate that. But would you do me a favor? I'm going to ask a question right now. And could you find the reaction and push on raise hand if you already are part of a community green team?
Can I interrupt and ask quickly because nobody answered my chat question? Is this being recorded so we can view it later?
It is. It was just announced before you came in, I think. Very good. Thanks for that question. All right. I'm seeing 10 participants raising hand. Anybody want to tell me I'm wrong? Okay, great. 11. Okay, as I said, please find the button if you can. Push raise hand under reactions if you're part of a green team. And it doesn't really matter what you call your local green team or your community green team. That's awesome. I see 16 green team members or participants raising hands. 17, 20. Cool. All right. Good. We will you can drop your hands, lower your hand, whatever that reaction is called. And but you'll see this is important. And I'm going to discuss this for just a minute. A green team ideally is a diverse, small group of people organized for action in your community. Now, who is a local community organizer? This training is aimed at such a person or persons. You may be a local community organizer. If you're one of the 20 that say you're already in a green team, either you are such a person or you may know that person. Either which way, that's great. You also may want to be such a person. Or you may want to be on that team. So those are a variety of ways that you can think about this. You may be the community organizer. You may want to become a community organizer. You may know the person who is or people who are, and you may want to be on that team. Or you may not be involved as a member of a community, and that's okay. You're here today. That's awesome. I'm going to ask if you might still want to help and you do not feel connected as a part of a green team or a local community. Please let MCAN know. We are all about the network. We want to respond. So please let us know. And again, thanks for being here. So now we're going to be training you in a particular program called Decarbonizers. But first, what is a decarbonizer? A decarbonizer is someone who has already adopted for their household any of these 3 measures: photovoltaics, that's solar, electric vehicles, or heat pump heating. someone who's already adopted for their household. Why these three measures? Because these are the three most impactful household measures by far. This has been well known for years, and a discussion about why and how this is the case can easily take up a very good constructive webinar on its own. And just to sort of summarize a lot of such discussion, other measures, other household measures are also good. They're also good, but they do not generally add up to be as effective, as impactful as these three. So it's not just us, the state is tracking these three particularly for this reason, because they are the most impactful. And remember, residences, and we're going to be talking about residences, they account for 60% of all building emissions, and passenger cars account for over 60% of all transportation emissions in the state. So those are some reasons why these three measures. This discussion also brings up the fact that not everyone is equally polluting. You might look at these three and say, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that. And I would say if that comes to your mind right away, it's probably because your carbon footprint is relatively small compared to others. So awesome.
I'm on a call.
Awesome. And if you can mute yourself, please, that'd be great. So awesome if you're already a small carbon footprint. That's great. Everyone should be. This is what gets us in that direction. Also, if you don't have access to your roof or even your heating system, remember landlords can and should be decarbonizers. One could have whole programs just for landlords, just for decarbonizers, landlords. So what this means is the target households for this program are those households with an available roof or automobile drivers or a heating system. And the important question is, are there target households in your community? So even if it's not you, think about it. Are there target households in your community? Yes, there are. So decarbonizers is someone who has already done this, but important for our purposes here today, this is about peer-to-peer programming. So we are looking for decarbonizers who are not experts, not experts. This is important. We are looking for non-experts. You will pick, and I'll show you how, 3 decarbonizers to be speakers at your program. That is the Decarbonizers program. Just 3 local speakers, members of your community who have already decarbonized. That is the program that you'll be putting together. But important part of the recipe, no experts, no professionals. This can be hard. You can have great participants in your local green team, in your programs, who are experts, who are professionals. This one, they can sit out, and that's okay. So, who will attend such a program? Well, these are the members of your community. Not everyone in your community will show up to your event. What a surprise. Who will show up are those who are curious about decarbonizing. So, even if you've already decarbonized, I assure you there are others in your community who are at the curious stage, and you'll see what I mean by curious. And by the way, some who will attend have already decarbonized, and that's fine. Most, if not all, oh, I'm sorry, back up. They're curious about decarbonizing, and you, as a climate organizer, would like them to be decarbonizing and as soon as possible, but it's important to remember when. So solar anytime is good if you have the access to the roof. Heat pumps, you want people to be replacing their existing heating system with heat pumps at the time that they need to either replace the existing heating system or significantly repair it. That's when. And similar with vehicles, if people have to drive an automobile next time they need to buy an automobile, it should be electric. That's the when. But what are people thinking? Well, you can presume, but you do want them to show up and feel comfortable asking these questions. Generally, people will show up still for the last 10 years and the next 20 years. What can I do? This is just a truism. It's ongoing. But specifically, people will show up. They've thought about getting an electric vehicle, but are there enough chargers out there? This is a question they'll be thinking. I'm going to ask for a show of hands again in just a second. People will be thinking, if they've thought about solar on a roof, if they have an accessible roof, they have already thought, well, what about when it snows? And everyone who hasn't yet transformed to heat pumps has heard, gee, do heat pumps really work in the cold? Now, my question for everyone, if you don't mind raising your hand again, find the reaction button. If you think you have answers, and I am not looking for you to supply the answers now. Please do not supply the answers. If you think you know some of the answers to any of these questions, raise your hand. It's a test to see if you're still paying attention. Yeah. Okay. Fast on the draw. I love it. Thank you. All right. You're still with me. Fantastic. I see 1920. Great, great, great. So yes, yes, yes. You have been paying attention before today. You know the answers. But, okay, I see 21 people. Thank you, thank you. You can drop your hands now. It turns out that you might be the expert, and you might not be the best person to provide an answer. And I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Yes, you have the answers, but it turns out others can provide them, and that might be even more powerful, and we'll see why. Why? Is because there's two different categories of how we can affect change. There are many, many, many top-down approaches, but this one that you're being trained in today is a peer-to-peer approach. And why is this important? Because market stages. We are in a new market stage. As a whole, we, climate activists, need to accommodate to this new development, and we have not yet. And that's why it's important that you're here and pay attention to the rest of the program. Market stages. So you may have seen bell curves like this. All products go through this. So the history of the radio, at some point in the US, let's say, nobody had a radio. Many years later, everyone had a radio. This was the bell curve of adoption. Same with smartphones, same with televisions. Well, the same with electric vehicles, the same with not necessarily solar, because you can't have solar on every roof, but same with heat pump heating. Okay, eventually everyone will decarbonize. Until we get far down the line here, we don't know the time scale. Notice that's not a time scale on the bottom. Individuals will be all over. Your best friend may be in this far right category. We just don't know, or at least as a generality, we don't know in advance. But as a generality, as communities, we are roughly about here now. Mm-hmm. We're not at the very beginning. And that's important to know because that's a different market stage. What we need to do is move, keep moving, rapidly accelerating. Now, how do we do that? Varies by market stage. So the earliest market stage means motivation primarily comes what we call from the top or down from above. And all of this is down from above types of motivation. You get motivated by hearing from experts, from authorities, from professionals, from research, and from tons and tons of programs and education that you have helped put on for the last, what did I say, 25 years. MCAN is now 25 years old. We've been doing programs in education, and it's fantastic. And by the way, think in terms, when I say education, do think in terms of teacher at the front, professor at the front, pupils in the classroom. That's what we're talking about. There's somebody talking to lots of others, somebody who knows a lot. And education is awesome. It has gotten us to where we are, and we can and must continue on the education front. But, motivation changes in this market stage that we've been in. We've already been in it for a few years. We have been approaching and entering the early majority stages where more and more motivation comes from the side, comes from our friends, from our relatives, from our neighbors. This is where we are. We must adapt. So this is my strong political statement to all of us. Shift to this kind of programming where it's peer influence, peer to peer. So 9 steps, how to do this. How to run a Decarbonizers program in your community. A Decarbonizers meaning a peer-to-peer program. Here are the 9 steps. As I said, I hope you have a pad of paper. You can jot them down as we go, or you can jot down one of these 9 if you need to come back. And by the way, 9 is assess. It's not optional. So, okay. All right. It seems simple. It is simple, but it's important to pay attention to the details. We'll take them in batches. Number 1. Put the date on the calendar, maybe 60 days. Now, 20 or half of you or so are already involved in a green team, so putting a date on the calendar, making up a program. You've done this before, you can do this again. For some, it's easy peasy. For others, you haven't yet started, or you don't have a green team or a context with which to work. You need some help. Fine, and we can come back to that in discussion. But hang on, hang in, and see where this goes. So first, put the date on the calendar. You only need about 60 days, but you want to be, number 2, publicizing, maximizing your publicizing. Put out a save the date as soon as you have it. And by the way, you're calling this whatever you want. Decarbonizers of Ashland, Decarbonizers of Gloucester, Decarbonizers of Chelsea, whatever you want, or Chelsea Decarbonizers. But as soon as you have a date, put out a save the date. Over the next weeks, circulate everywhere. Seek RSVPs so you get signups in advance. And at the last minute, send out yet one more blast if you're doing it by email. Now we start getting into the heart of this. Step 3, seek around. You're looking for the pool of non-expert decarbonizers. You might know them already. You're looking in your community for people who have done one or more of the 3 big steps. And how are you doing that? You're networking. You're asking around. Somebody says, oh, I know somebody, and you call them up. Who says, I know somebody, and you call them up. Network, network, network. And by the way, if you have a team already, you will be strengthening and adding to your team doing this process. And again, everything I'm saying can be one person or it can be a team doing this. But in any case, you are building your team from scratch or you are building your team that already exists. Either way, this process builds your green team. You're seeking around. Doing this networking is fun. And here's a key thing at the bottom, as I say here. If you have a core group, go to the edges. In other words, if you've got a core group and maybe bless the core group, right? These are the hard workers, the ones who show up regularly. Maybe it's a relatively new group. Maybe you haven't tapped all of them, but maybe you have 10 times over the last couple of years. In any case, utilize your core, but also go to the edges. What do I mean by the edges? If you've got 6 people in your core group and 12, another 6 who show up sometimes, call the other 6, the edges, and say, how are you doing? Do you fit one of these 3 categories? Do you know somebody who does? And recruit them. They can make these calls. So right now you're looking for the pool of people. Hopefully you'll find a number of people who've gone photovoltaics, a number of people who've gone electric vehicle. You are looking for people who drive an electric car. You're looking for those who heat with a heat pump, and you're looking for those who generate solar electricity on their roof. By the way, it's typically on their roof. Doesn't have to be. So seek around this and listen, by the way, as you connect with these people, listen for their preliminary stories. And we're going to get into stories more in a minute. But as you have these conversations, keep it open. You're not saying you will necessarily be the speaker. Listen, keep it light and breezy. Here's a simple script. Yeah, you may know I'm on the green team. I heard you have solar panels. That's great. We're hoping to spread the word. Can I ask you, how long have you had them? Do you like them? Totally open-ended, right? Totally softball. Don't ask a whole lot more questions because this is still preliminary. What you're doing is you're listening, you're taking notes, you're finding out, is this person talkative, enthusiastic? You're listening for their style. You're listening, total of 5 minutes might do it. If they're talkative and you want them to keep going, that's fine. But you don't want to tax them at this point. You haven't tapped them yet. Okay, this is step 3. Keep it open, asking about the pool. All right. Next, you're going to be selecting from your pool. This is a shift in mode. You're picking one each. One person who has photovoltaics, one person who drives electric vehicle, one person who has heat pump heating. They could have done it recently. They could have done it 10 years ago. But if they've had a couple of years experience, that's sort of the sweet spot. You're looking for that sweet spot of a couple of years of experience, not brand new, because they're accumulating the experience. 10 years old is great. Great. We can just imagine those are the real heroes who've been really lowering the overall carbon footprint for all that time. Fantastic. But we all know that the rules and regs, the context shifts over the time. So if somebody's done it in the last couple of years and all else is equal, you want to aim for them. But in this stage, you have shifted your mode. You become the producer. The producer is discriminating. Usually when you're working as a green team, you want to be totally equal and open. Everything is good. But here you want to be discreet. Maybe you want to work with a small group. You will be selecting one from a few. You are looking for those who you deem are personable or popular or relatable or entertaining, whatever it takes, or good representatives of the community. Any which way you have criteria, that's fine, but be discriminating. You are the impresario. You are putting a program together. The program will consist of these 3 people. So pick only 3. You'll feel pressure. These 2 people both had great stories. That's fine. Pick one of the 2. And when you let people down, you might have to say, oh, please come anyway to the program. We really want you. We'll need lots of answers to questions. So your experience will be helpful. Remember, this is only the first time we're doing this. We would like to do it again. And this last one here, if you're still paying attention, you might have to let people down. If they're the expert, if they're the professional, and you might have to say, we've done these other programs, but this program is only for non-experts. I hope you understand. Alrighty. So you have now been discriminating and selected your 3 speakers. And now you go back and ask them each again a variety of easy questions like, what was your motivation? Did you have any issues? How does the rest of the family like it? And remember, like driving in the electric car, did you have any issues with the heat pump installation? What was your motivation for solar? Okay, those kinds of questions. Again, open-ended softball questions to get them talking and you listening. I'm pointing to my ear. I don't know if anybody can see me. You are listening and you get them talking for 20 minutes, even 40 minutes. could take 1 or 2 interviews. Take notes. Listen, 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 because oh, and by the way, keep them on the personal first person, away from generalities, only about their experience, their perspectives. First person, I or we. And now head for the run through. Schedule a meeting with all 3 of them. And I think I said this earlier, but it's a good time to remind us. This program that we're devising, the Decarbonizers program, works well as a Zoom in the end for your audience. It can work well in person, either way, either way. And at this stage, it's a run through. And again, in person or Zoom, it's a run through before the main program. And you schedule a meeting with all 3, you introduce them to each other, and you say clearly looking for what's interesting and entertaining about your story. So you've been the producer, and now you're turning into the director. So I hope everybody's catching these nuances here. You're the organizer, you're the producer, you're the director of this little event that we're creating. So by director, I mean you're going to be eliminating overlap. If 2 people talk extensively about Mass Save, you don't need both of them talking about Mass Save. Pick one. And again, use your judgment. What's interesting? What's entertaining? What's relatable? And each person, maximum 8 minutes, 6 is fine too. And you can say these things. Your enthusiasm comes through when you say that. I love that you shared that story about the kids. And remember, just be yourself. You're not there to be an expert. All righty. Some people will say, I have lots of pictures and say, that's terrific. Send them to me in advance, me being the organizer, the director. Let me take a look, and we're going to select 2 or 3. And somehow you might have to help that person get over their, if they're crestfallen at their major collection of photos. All right, but they also might have a major collection of data, and you want to emphasize this is not about engineering or data. If they really want to have a slide or picture with numbers on it, keep it light. Again, you review it, you narrow it down, have very little data on one slide, and only one. I suggest 1 slide per person, if necessary, on which has numbers. And now we're headed for the program. Remind yourself. And by the way, thank you everybody for your patience. It's a good time to remind ourselves, why are we doing this? And we'll get to that in a minute. But you can get so involved in these preparations, you lose track. All right, but stay on your toes, keep it moving, keep the program moving once it's going. You might have to remind your speakers. And by the way, you're there to help facilitate. What were you? You were the community organizer. You were the producer. You were the director. Now you're the facilitator. One or more of your speakers could get stuck. Could get, what do you call it? Stage fright. It happens. Not everybody's a speaker. And you can help them because you've listened to their stories and you've selected out which ones you want them to emphasize. You remember, you were going to talk about when the kids first got in the car. Whatever you need to remind them with, and that breaks the ice. And remember, this is not television here. This is community. So the more homey this is, it can be the more better. Speaking of homey, if you've got them in person, include food, awesome. Door prizes, awesome. Socialize, awesome. After the speakers, lots and lots of time for Q&A. But keep facilitating. Keep it non-expert. Every question should be answered with, and only with, our experience was, I found that, first person, we, I, our, me, etc. Don't generalize. Don't let people sort of devolve into generalized experts. All right, afterwards, woo-hoo. You have a stronger green team now. thank the presenters and organizers, assess, advise us, MCAN, we'd love to hear about it. And don't be afraid to repeat, put it on next year's calendar, next quarter's calendar. These are iterative programs. They should be to move us forward. We are looking, this whole process gets you to the next cohort of decarbonizers. You'll see in my finishing slides here. And here's the list. And remember, this is all being recorded, and you will have the slides also. So everyone came into this presentation, to the presentation that you've put together. They've come into the Decarbonizers program wondering, gee, what can I do? What can we do? And they had these questions. And you, if you're the expert, didn't answer them because their neighbors answered them. Their community members answered them. They addressed these concerns. We know how to answer them, but it's much better if they hear from their peers. And here's the result. One person says, did she just say they made money? Whoa. Another person says, wow, that looks easy enough. Ours needs replacing anyway. Bottom line, if they can do it, so can we. Thanks, everybody. This is what we're doing. Please go forth. Please find a way to get a Decarbonizers program happening. Let MCAN know this is the direction we all want. We're all moving in, but we can help accelerate this with peer-to-peer programming. It's the most powerful motivator, the most powerful.
Everything okay?
Mhm.
All right, so we will be taking questions and answers. Appreciate your patience. And I just want to say that this sort of carries forth from what we introduced in September, the Climate Goals Tracker. You can go to a website that we helped put together with 2 other organizations, which shows how many electric vehicles are already in your municipality, how many heat pumps, how many roof solar installations, all residential. And your job, as I see it, as I hope you see it, is to keep those numbers growing as fast as possible. All right, folks, thanks for your patience. I am interested in comments, and I think we said before, please raise hand. And I have a couple of people, MCAN board members and staff who's going to help me. Let me know who's on first here. All right, Stacy, City of Salem.
Yep, the which city? A little bit busy right now, as you can imagine. So I had a couple of questions. One, does community solar come into play for this particular outreach model?
Right, great question. I would, we could have a discussion. I would say, if you had a program about community solar recently, do you want to? Great stuff, great stuff, great stuff. It takes a particular kind of concentration, as we know, or focus. If you haven't done one and you want to do it as a follow-up to this, I'd suggest it. But I think this one is geared towards getting individual households, whether they're landlords, as I said before, or not, to be thinking about their roofs. So, but community solar is great. It can come up in the conversation. Best if you leave it, I would suggest have it in the Q&A afterwards. So that's just my take. Some people have included it, but it can get a little bit distracting because it's a great thing. It's a great thing, but needs its own focus. Okay. Thank you.
And I was guessing also ditto for if, like, we're talking about existing, 1 to 4 family homes or landlord properties decarbonizing, rather than like people building new construction.
Right.
Because they would already be taken care of with the stretch code if your community has adopted it, pretty much.
New construction, great topic. And Jack is here. And Jack is MCAN's staff person working on embodied carbon in new construction. So, Jack, will you please get back in touch with Stacy after this program? And hopefully, Jack will have resources for you if you don't have them already, Stacy. Okay, but new construction, whole other discussion, which is, and we would love to have any and all of these things as great topics in future programs. Paul, thanks for your patience.
Thank you very much, Fred. This is amazing. I have thought about this 100 times about pulling together my neighbors and my church and so on and so forth and explaining why we need to do this. As a grandfather, it's my look into the future. And uh, I just really acknowledge you for putting together this formula so we can bake this cake. This is wonderful. And one thing I will say about community aggregation, I think that's an important topic because I know here in Worcester, our our they actually developed uh, a Department of Sustainability and Resilience, and they put forward a community aggregation program that you had to opt out of. And they had secured a supply that was greener than what National Grid was doing, et cetera, et cetera. So that may be worth another seminar at some point because it's a quick and easy way to drop your carbon footprint is by signing up for community solar. Thank you again for this. This is critical.
Terrific. Thank you, Paul. And yeah, so community solar, community aggregation, awesome things. And, you know, now that you've heard the outline, the recipe, as Paul said, you can take this and apply it a variety of ways, right? You could take this recipe and apply it just to community aggregation. You know, speak up if you've done it already. How did you like it? You know, it's, I liked it fine. I didn't even know I signed up. Those are various answers. So it's all good. But this particular format is devised for, as you saw, for decarbonizing per se. Sabrina, please.
So you're talking about making it more widespread adoption through hearing it from peers instead of one person lecturing it. But uh, how do you make it so that the people who show up are not the people who are already listening to the experts and like already are really into the climate change? And like, how do you advertise it to like the broader community?
Excellent. And by the way, I'll ask for show of hands about generally advertising if people want any advice. I'm sure lots of you do a lot of publicizing. I called it publicizing. But yeah, so what gatekeeping do you need on the attendees? Well, I would suggest that if you have if you're doing the networking to reach out, you will probably, if you don't already know who are the folks who would be categorized as experts and or professionals, you might find that out in this process, or you might find out more of them. Nothing is perfect. You can't expect in advance. But what you could do the day of the program is make a firm announcement at the beginning of the program, or a firm announcement at the beginning of the Q&A. So those of us who might be experts and or professionals are being told to please sit on your hands, right? I think that's the term. Don't raise your hands, sit on your hands. And if there's any offense there, you try to be apologetic and say, we've had other programs, we will have other programs. This is only for those who are not experts. Okay, so they can be in the audience and you're asking them politely, please sit on your hands, don't let others speak. So, and it really does take some finesse because the whole recipe, Paul, I love that Paul called it a recipe. That's what I've called it in other trainings. Um, this whole thing can go off the rails, even in the middle of the Q&A after you've spent months of organizing it. And I've seen this happen, unfortunately, and the salesperson who was trying to sit on their hands just can't help themselves and says, I can help, my firm can, and then you're off to the races. So you really want to do whatever you can to try to prevent that. That person is awesome. We need the professionals. None of this would happen without professionals. But this programming is not that. All right. Enough said on that. And oh, I'm sorry. I did ask, would anybody like to raise their hand with any just off the cuff ideas about how to publicize to bring in people who are thinking about decarbonizing? Has anybody done any such publicizing? Eric? Terry?
Yeah.
Next.
Can you hear me?
Go.
Yeah. I did this for a temple in Cambridge, probably 7 or 8 years ago. We were insulating the buildings themselves and adding solar, but I made it so that there was a small award, like $50 that the temple got for every person who did an energy audit. So we got, I think, like 80 people to do energy audits for their houses. And it just seems like houses of worship are a good place for convening this kind of thing. They have spaces where you can do an event. They have built-in communities. You can go, multi-denominational. I'm not saying restrict it to that particular house of worship, but, use their networks, which they usually have in communities. And also they often are leaders themselves. Like I'm a little bit of a ringer here as one of those professionals that, as Fred knows, but I have done a lot of community work as well. And I've seen houses of worship really leading on this. So they're good sort of moral centers as well. So I think, where they have an interest in protecting creation is how some of them put it. And so that makes it also a good setting for that. So yeah, that's my comment.
Thanks, Eric. Terry?
Yes, hi. So I work for a nonprofit public health consultant, environmental health too. So I'm just wanted to recommend perhaps that people go to some of their local public health coalitions. They're actually regional across the state. So I'm going to put that in the chat. They're called Community Health Network areas, which is not the most easy to remember, but they're actually coalitions of a bunch of different organizations that are usually so committed in their communities. And, like we've worked with them in Lawrence and Lowell and Greater New Bedford and Western Mass. So they're in just doing wonderful work to advance public health. And I think they'd be interested in this.
Terrific. Now, is anybody offering a question in the chat here? Okay, here we go. Terry. Okay. Terry, do you want to speak up and offer your question so everybody can hear it? Do you mind?
That's what I was just saying about the Community Public Health Coalition.
Okay.
Oh, do you mean my other question? Oh, I did have another question just because we also have done a lot of work with peer networking. So like Spanish speaking family daycare providers, Spanish speaking auto body shop owners and workers, and training a handful who then reach out and train others. And we're working with public housing tenants in East Boston, but all of those, this is not quite the top, because they don't own so much. I imagine this is not exactly the focus, but we have found they're very interested in environmental improvements and environmental justice. So maybe more on just that energy saving conservation side. Lincoln. So I
Great.
was wondering if
And
you had other trainings that were oriented to that audience. That's, I guess, was my question.
Yeah, good question. So thanks for attending this one. And, our hope is that it can be adapted in any and every community. And what you're describing is, I think, the similar kind of networking that we're talking about here. Let's see. I see Susan has your hand. Susan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what I just wrote in the chat, which is that I'm hearing a lot of talk lately about the best way to get EV adoption, and this may extend to the other, the heat pumps and the solar panels as well, but is to talk about what great technology it is, how, like with EVs, what fun they are to drive. They're smooth, they're quiet, they don't smell, all the wonderful attributes everybody says if you drive an EV, you never want to go back to a gas car. And to really emphasize those features and basically not talk about climate, especially if you're dealing with people who might not be big, not feel strongly about climate or even be deniers, that you can still convince people by by emphasizing those other qualities. And I think that I heard something that Republicans adopt EVs at a faster pace if you don't talk about climate.
Right. So the point of, and thanks for bringing all this up. And maybe I missed what you said at the beginning, but this outline where peers are the ones providing the answers, do you think that's an effective way to get at those questions of experience?
Well, yeah,
I
I
love.
mean, you just say how wonderful those technologies are, but I'm just saying when you advertise, when you're trying to attract your audience, you got to know your community, but think about whether your community is one that will respond to, for example, do you want to lower your carbon footprint type of appeal, or would they respond more to, like, what are these great improvements you can make to your lifestyle and your house and your driving, and kind of not even talk about climate. I think it just depends what community you're in.
Great. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, so and I'm looking in the chat to see if there are other questions that we haven't jumped on. Does anybody want to just speak up if you're in that category? And so may I ask, Susan, is any of that related to experience you've had in Williamstown?
Well, I live in a pretty liberal community, so it's not so much what I experience here, although I do spend time in some parts of the state where people are not quite as liberal as they are in my town. And I do think that I guess my point is that I think talking about or focusing this on being a climate measure can polarize people. And so I think just being aware of whether that will be an attractor or detractor in the community you're in.
I think it's a great general question. If anybody wants to jump in with any experience they have, that'd be fantastic. I'll just note, just to remind us all, if you remember the bell-shaped curve that I showed about market adoption, we are at a particular point in that curve. I mean, each community is at a slightly different place. Each community is at a slightly different place for each of the three technologies. However, generally speaking, we're at a particular place, and you can think about, and what I think we all need to be thinking about is, who is the cohort that's next going to go? Who is the next to go? And how can you guess? You can guess by who just went. Who just got their electric car, 6 months ago? Who just went there? And by the way, this is a little skewed because tax credits being taken away all of a sudden, right? But in general, and by the way, I've been looking every day, I'm just a little aside, for the latest EV data. And as of yesterday, it hadn't yet shifted. It's going to be by quarter, so we'll know at the end of for Massachusetts, the end of September was the end of the federal tax credits for EVs. And as soon as that's posted, we'll know what the bump was. And what it seems to be on the national scale is a bump, not an intense spike. And what I want to convey about that is that that means if there's a natural growth of people going EV, we are likely not totally off that curve. We'll see a bump. We expect some depression in the following quarter, but in general, we're going to stay on an accelerated increasing curve. That's my assessment of it, and I look forward to the numbers. John, thanks for your patience.
Sure. I appreciate this presentation, and I totally sympathize with Susan's point about the possibility of climate change negatively influencing the conversation. I represent the Gosnell-Cuttyhunt Climate Action Network. We're the smallest town in Massachusetts. We're an island where sea level rise and ocean warming is an existential threat, not tomorrow, but within the next 10 years. And I think we need to, this is just sort of how I think about things, but I think we need to balance the risk of offending people with the realization that, as the saying goes, the house is on fire, and we need to proceed full speed ahead. Thank you, and thanks for this presentation.
Great comment. Thank you so much, John. If you want to say anything about experience in Cuttyhunk or others in their town, that'd be great. And it's now 1 o'clock, and we're going to end the general program here, but no change. We're going to keep the window open. Everybody can stay. We can continue exactly where we were when we left off. But for those who have to hop, I want to say thank you so much for showing up today, for going through the training. And MCAN's interest is that you will go forth and implement. Please, please, please let us know that you're interested in doing so, if you're interested in doing so, and certainly that you're organizing and on track. And we are glad to stay in touch and help in any way we can. And I just want to also say, network. Fred here, that's me, has been talking way too much. So I do encourage those who stay on, please participate any which way you want. It's all good. As it's should be peer-to-peer on this. So next time we do this program, it can be each of us talking about our experience putting on a Decarbonizers program locally and sharing it with others. So with that, we're at 1 o'clock, and thank you very much. Anyone wants to stay? We have some very interesting subjects that have come up. Is Susan still with us here? Did Susan hop off? Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm still here.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so Susan,
I'm still here. I'm still here. I have a question, not on
Great.
this topic, but one that you mentioned. I could not come to the last meeting about the climate tracker. Who do I contact? Because we are very interested in it. I've had, medical problems in my family, and I couldn't come, but I need to talk to somebody about it because it's a great idea. Who do I go to?
Okay, Susan, thank you very much. And we didn't put that in the chat. We meant to. Helena, are you able to grab the link and put it in the chat in the next couple minutes, please? You're muted.
I can do it, Fred.
Oh,
Fatima, thank you so much. That's terrific.
yeah,
All right.
Fatima, do it because I am right now on the way to the airport. So, yes, so Fatima, please put the chat and maybe a link also to the presentation that
I'd like
Fred
that.
and I gave on that.
In September, yeah. So Susan, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. Did you have anything particular you wanted to ask about it? Are you still here?
No, I've not learned enough about it because I haven't been able to come, but I'm interested in it. And we're from Gloucester, and I think there are 3 of us on the call here, and we've all been interested in it. So we'd like to learn more, and then we'll be contacting whoever we need to contact to get going on it. And thank you for this presentation. This has been very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. And by the way, there are about 40 communities. So of the 351 cities and towns, about 40 or 60 or so have checked in. In other words, the website is tracking that somebody looked up, and I'm just giving an example. I don't have the list in front of me. It could have been Gloucester, it could have been Framingham, it could have been Newton. Those would have been 3. So 60 different towns or municipalities have been checked by somebody. And many of them only once in the 6 weeks since we launched that. And a batch have been checked twice or 3 times. And one town has been checked, I think, 24 times. Anybody want to guess? It wasn't Gloucester.
No, that's a good one. Who was it?
Anyone to guess?
Can you tell us?
You might live there. That's a
Brookline.
hint.
Nine.
Getting close.
Newton.
There you go. It could be that Helena checked 20
But-
times.
because I wrote a piece for a newsletter of Green Newton. I guess that's what did it. Yeah.
There you go. And I would recommend anybody and everyone, and we do need to put out more publicity about it. Helena has made that point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Susan, thank you. Yeah, so someone else had mentioned deniers, climate deniers in the main session. Has anybody had any experience with such people in the last say 2 years? Well, we have them at the top of the federal government for sure, but anybody locally? Eric, did you just raise your hand, or has it been up all this time?
It's been up. I mean, I have, this wasn't what I was going to speak about, but I do have some family members who are semi-deniers. But yeah, I mean, I think I always try to sidestep that issue and just say, if it's cars or heat pumps or solar, well, for solar, I've made the argument for, I got it in 2012, and I've made the argument for, for more than a decade that it's a financial investment with return. It's not like redoing your bathroom or your kitchen. It actually it's like a bond up on your roof. Like solar panels are almost the physical embodiment of a bond because they save you money and then they make money with the smart payments. So that's the case I've made on that. I have another comment on something else, but I can hold that while we talk about climate deniers, if you'd like.
Mary, deniers?
Deniers, but skeptics. And one of the things that we did before we got our heat pump system was to have a realtor come in and assess the value of our home. And she said, we didn't have air conditioning. I grew up in Minnesota, and I was doing this series of, fans all over the house and taking a lot of time to do that. But I, as a climate activist and sitting on the MCAN board, wanted to take some leadership. And the realtor said, it's just a really good investment in your property. So for the people who are skeptics or even deniers, they can relate to the financial aspect of their investment.
Good. Hey, just along those lines, my perspective is, and Terry, I'm sorry, I'll just finish my thought, is that back to those bell-shaped curves. Today, we do not need everyone. Eventually, those last people, they're on the chart as laggards. The last people will be the last people. This is the way it is. We need today's cohort. They're out there. They are curious. Susan, I see the word you're using is those with apathy, and they may or may not come in the door, or they may be curious. Either way, if you get a group of people, you can't predict about any one, but you increase the chances that some will move ahead. Terry, thanks for listening.
Oh, no, sure. I guess with what Mary was saying, I was just curious because I've heard from Atlanta that they do it differently, maybe than people do in Massachusetts, where they the city pays for installation of the solar panels. And they make it a lien on the house so that you pay it off over 25 years at your same rate that you're paying now for electricity or less. Immediately it could increase your home value. But I think the advantage is, first of all, some of the installers I hear are not, people are find disreputable, but this is through the city, and people usually only live in their house maybe not long enough to reap the savings of not having the energy indefinitely, costs indefinitely. So this way it ties to the house instead of the owner.
And
But
when you mentioned I'm sorry, when you mentioned the possibility of disreputable contractors, that's you're referring to Atlanta or Georgia?
No, that's just what I hear of some skeptics, is that people have reported back bad experiences, because you could have that kind of a free installation or loan from a private contractors, I hear, but people who seem to have done it don't find that to have worked very well versus if the city pays for it.
So great, thanks for those comments. And again, the bell-shaped curve, what we've been experiencing is this stuff getting mainstreamed, right? So any contractor and any arena will have bad actors, unfortunately. And we all care and want that not to happen, but don't let it, overpower the general movement is, I guess, what we should all be saying. And Mary, you're next, and then Eric.
Yes, I just wanted to say something about the influence of being prepared and not necessarily taking the action, but as Fred emphasized in his remarks, and I found when I canvassed on Brookline Day, that there are many people who just feel comfortable taking a first step that isn't an action, but actually knowing what they have in their house. For example, an old stove, or when is it going to, when is the heat pump, hot water, when is the hot water heater going to blow, et cetera, et cetera. So you have an inventory, which is a really good stage for people who are not ready to get into deeper things at that point. And then the other influencer is, some people are really affected by learning about data, which the Climate Goals Tracker is excellent resource. And I love what was said about announcing it in your local newsletter, or announcing that kind of information, that the climate tracker is there, and let the curious people come towards you, and then track, maybe if you can, who's looking into it.
And I do want to encourage those who are still on the line, please take yourself off mute. You're welcome to just speak up. Eric, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so we do, Greener U does institutional decarbonization, so houses of worship and other nonprofits, and that's a great place to, not just to convene people to help, but to help, larger organizations move forward. So I would just add that, as in addition to individual action, the institutions that have a long-term interest in their buildings, they're not, they've been a church, we're doing geothermal for a church in Wellesley that's been there for 230 years or something, and they're planning on being around for a lot longer. And we've had others, houses of worship and other nonprofits that own their buildings. So that's an area to look for additional progress. And the other thing I was going to mention is that a lot of that, not entirely, but it's a lot of energy is being, excuse the pun, but being generated by BERDO. So in Boston, Newton, and Cambridge, the Building Emissions Reduction Disclosure Ordinance, I think I got it right, BERDO, is basically putting a significant carbon price on larger buildings. It depends which city you're in and when the date starts, but they're basically saying you have to ramp down your emissions over the next, 10, 20, 30 years. And that is really, we're seeing like a strong interest in how do we respond to this? What's our plan over time? So having, and this also gets into the individual action, like knowing what your plan is ahead of time is really important. And so, we've been doing studies for organizations to say, here's your pathway over the next 10 or 20 years. And it doesn't have to be do it all at once. And by the same token for individuals, you don't have to do it all at once, but if you want to be ready to make that change when the time comes, because, if you're pressed and your boiler goes out or your water heater goes out, you just have to deal with it. And the same is true of large institutions. They have these large boilers or furnaces or rooftop units. And once those go, you don't want to just replace it with another 15 or 20 years of fossil fuel burning equipment. You want to be ready, and you've already done the research to figure it out. So I would say on both individual and institutional level, being prepared is a great approach. So yeah, that's my comment. And I think it sort of bounces off of what Mary just said as well.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Dan, were you going to say something? And Lori, I'm just thinking of people who haven't spoken up yet. Pamela, Eleni, Gretchen. Anybody want to speak up? Dan, was there anything you wanted to say?
Actually, I wanted to
Okay.
ask Gretchen, I wanted to ask a really basic question going back to the presentation you gave about having these events to gather people from the community to come together with people who are non-experts. So in Shrewsbury, our climate group had a heat pump party at one of our homes in January of last year. And we had none of the people we invited attended. We had 2 town meeting members attend, and we are still trying to figure out what we could do that could be more effective. We sent out letters to 80 town meeting members, emails inviting them, maybe a month in advance. And then a day prior, we sent out another wave to the same people as a reminder. And we had an open house from like 11 to 2, and we had snacks. And those of us in our group, among, all of us, we've got heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, EVs, solar, so we don't consider ourselves experts. It was intended to be a people to people thing. And we'd love to do something else, but we don't know whether having it in a private home was a problem for people, or whether having it on a Sunday in the middle of the day was a problem, or does anyone have the ability to critique it and make a suggestion for how we might improve our audience? We're not trying to keep the experts out. We're trying to get the community in.
Nice. Well, thanks for laying that out. It's an organizing challenge, isn't it? So just to review, I think you said you have 80 representatives in your town meeting?
We actually have 240, but we invited the first 80 thinking that we didn't want to be overwhelmed. We'd see how many showed up, and then with the next wave, because we planned to just keep rolling these out last year, with the
Yeah.
next wave, we would learn from the 80 we invited how many actually show up, and we could maybe invite 160 the next time, or 40,
Well,
whatever.
so I look forward to anybody's, especially if you haven't spoken up already, any comments to address this great challenge. But I would definitely encourage you to keep with the iterative you had in mind. See how many showed up. I like that. And now you found out. But don't let that keep you from trying again and trying different things, of course. So 80 out of 240. What's the population in Shrewsbury?
It's about 36,000, I believe.
And my last question was, you mentioned your group. How many in your group?
We have about 6 active members, and we have about 15 total. We have people that jump in or jump out for different projects. They're more like to read what we're doing, and they sometimes have expertise and they come in.
Cool. So those 15, my outline said, use them, use the network, get them doing the recruiting. But definitely you want to set up an RSVP list this next time, so you know in advance if the number is 0. But it shouldn't be. You wouldn't hold it if it was going to be 0. All right. Anyway, I'm sure good organizers here have some ideas for you. Please speak up if you're still here. Brenda Black just arrived. Okay. We have some explaining to do to Brenda. Eleni, you're off mute. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm part of the climate committee here in Eastham. It's an appointment, and we have been, trying to do these kind of community events. We've had some success, and but it feels really slow. But we're making some progress. I'm wondering, what is the posture that people take around things like hybrid vehicles and community solar, when people can't put on their own solar panels on their roof or in their property in any way. And I'm on a committee with experts who say, that's BS. We can't promote that. It's hybrid vehicles are not the answer. And yet people are trying to take some step, conscious effort to do something that's going to be at least somewhat helpful. What does MCAN think about these measures that aren't, the full measures, but on the way?
Right. So again, open to hearing other people's thoughts, but in general, those of us who understand the issues, we know very well that if somebody has to make a decision today about buying a car, and they buy the all-gas car that happens to be called hybrid because it's a little more efficient, that means they're locked into gasoline. They're locked in for the length of time that car is going to be on the road. We know that, right? And yet there's a strong push. And I wonder, does anybody hear that dealerships make this argument? Because I'm hearing it so often. I'm thinking must be sales pitch. And imagine the sales pitch goes like, the electric vehicle, you don't want that. That's expensive. This one, almost as efficient. And we call it a hybrid because it's so much more efficient than the old cars. So that's crazy talk from our perspective, but it's a challenge for all of us to fight back against that. I think that's the right answer. I'm open to anyone giving other answers. Okay, Susan, you want to speak up?
Can I just, my answer would be if it's a plug-in hybrid. And
that's not where, no, that's electric vehicle. And I'm saying the all gas hybrid.
Yeah, I know, but she didn't distinguish. So I'm just saying that you don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. If somebody drives under 20 or 30 miles regularly, then they're going to be all battery if it's a plug-in hybrid.
But I am trying to discern, Eric, between any kind of electric vehicle, plug-in or all battery, versus a non-electric vehicle, not a pluggable vehicle, which is being called by, I think, way too much of the population efficient and hybrid and better and almost as good, etc. I think it's dangerous and it's a problem. Susan, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Susan? My take on this from what I've been listening to is that even plug-in hybrids are not, at first I thought, oh, that's the perfect compromise for people who are hesitant about EVs. But then I've heard people talk about, a lot of the pundits talk about the fact that with a plug-in hybrid, you are now carrying and maintaining both a gas engine and an electric motor. And it makes it more complicated to service more, you're carrying more weight, so you're going to use more fuel to move it around, whether it's electricity or gas. And, and it's just like, you're still somewhat dependent on gas, I think. So I would just say, as an EV driver for almost 3 years now, when I first bought my EV, I live way out in the Western Mass. I come to the Boston area a lot. When I first started driving that distance, it was really a challenge about making sure I had enough charge to get where I needed to go. Now it is not so hard. And I drive down the Eastern Seaboard pretty regularly, and I don't have a problem. I found places where I can charge in 15 or 20 minutes. like north of New York City. And I just don't think that the range anxiety issues associated with EVs is nearly as bad, at least in this region. I'm talking about the whole Northeast, is really as bad as it used to be a few years ago. And I think that is a message that really needs to get out, that the
Good.
charging infrastructure is a lot better now than it was even a couple of years ago.
Good. And do we think all of this is worthy of an MCAN Zoom, network Zoom, like today's program? In other words, make it all about the latest on EVs. It's an open question. If anybody wants to pursue that, please let us know. I do want to encourage anyone that's still on the call that hasn't spoken yet, not to pick on you, but if you're here, unless you've gone off to lunch and just left the screen on, that's fine too. So Alex, are you there? And Brenda, I think, did you just sign on late? And Diane, did you speak up before?
Hi, this is Diane. I am here, I'm listening, and I'm also preparing because I'm going to have to be working in about 15 minutes. So I'm multitasking right now. Sorry.
No. I'm glad you're here, Diane. What town are you at?
Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury. Got it.
Yes, hi.
So,
This is Alex from
Alex.
Truro. Yeah, we were just actually, no, this is great because I think I'm more of a numbers person. And I think if I did a presentation, I'd definitely be heavy on the numbers, but I love the adoption curve thing you have. And that makes a lot of sense. We're about to do we're trying to really get people to sign up for, and basically Mass Save. It's called Cape Light Compact for us on the Cape. And I think this whole strategy could work great for that, and just doing this sort of peer-to-peer stuff. So I really appreciate the talk, and yeah, definitely want to present this to my climate action group because I think they'll be super interested in that. So thank you.
Terrific, Alex. Thanks. I'm glad you're here. And Jack, have you been in touch with Alex before this?
Have not.
Okay, so there's a number of people at Cape Light Compact, but Jack might be okay, Alex, if Jack reaches out to you, he has some particular questions to go over about Cape Light Compact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll shoot you a note, Alex.
Thanks.
Terrific. Anyone else who hasn't spoken up or has other questions? Brenda, you came on late?
I came on, had to do a 1 o'clock call and came back on. So 2 questions. One, when do you expect the recording of this to be available? Since I'm representing several people that were really interested but couldn't be here today.
Fatima, do you want to venture a guess? If you're still here.
Yeah, it'll be up either later today or early tomorrow morning. And how you can access that is we'll either send an email to everyone who attended it, but it's always going to be on our website.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And the other question is, and this is not a challenge because I actually very much understand stages of change and appropriate sort of materials to engage people to the next stage of change. But at the beginning of your presentation, you said this approach has been sort of positively demonstrated. Can you just give any data to support that? Because my people will be asking me for data to support it. So if you have it, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So each time people put this on or think about putting it on, they ask that same very good question. And no one has come forth and said, we're gonna spend X amount of money to research that question. It's a very fair and good question. So I can only give the qualitative reporting that I've given. I've seen it put on maybe a dozen times, again, in houses of worship of different sorts, in municipalities of different sorts. And that, yeah, it's only qualitative.
Fair
That
enough.
last slide where I give people's responses, I have seen that again and again and again. It is the most effective. Yeah. All right. Thanks for asking.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else have any comments or thoughts?